Quilters, it's time to dream a little bit and keep track of all your quilting projects in one place. So today's video is going to be a tutorial on how to make a quilting journal. We are going to start with 2 pieces of fabric and 1 piece of batting that all measure 13 inches by 19 inches. The fabric I've chosen for the front looks like it's 4 different fabrics pieced together, but it's actually printed that way, so it's 4 different fabrics on 1 piece of fabric. You'll want to press them so there are no wrinkles or folds in the fabrics, and then layer them together. I used 505 spray to base my layers together. Now it's time to do some quilting. You can do this on a regular sewing machine. As long as you have a walking foot, that'll make the job a lot easier. You can do any kind of quilting you want. You could also use a darning foot to do some free motion quilting, but I'm going to show you a little trick I use on smaller projects that helps me create a perfect grid for the quilting. Normally I recommend quilting from the center out, but for this small project we're going to quilt all the way around the edge to begin with, because that'll help us in the second step when we quilt it from the back side. As soon as I've sewn all the way around the rectangle, I'm going to remove it from the machine and flip it over to show you the back side. The back side is a grid pattern printed right on the fabric, and I'm going to use the lines to follow along while I'm quilting to make a grid pattern on the front. Make sure that the thread you're using to be on the front of the project is in the bobbin. Now all you have to do is use the walking foot and follow the lines on the grid. I'm doing all of the darker lines, so my grid will be about 1 inch by 1 inch. And all I do is sew until I can't sew anymore. I've reached that line we sewed from the front. I pivot, follow the next line, pivot, follow the next line, and keep going until the whole front is done. If you didn't want your quilting to be quite that dense, you could follow every other line, and then that would be about a 2 inch by 2 inch grid. I love using these grid fabrics to quilt from the back side for small projects like this or smaller table runners. It's just so easy to follow the grid. There's no marking involved. It makes the job very easy. Every once in a while, as you're sewing, you'll have to take the top out of the machine, look at it to kind of see where you've missed. That way you know where to go and find the lines that you haven't gone over yet. We are using composition books for filling the inside of the journal. Those measure 7.5 by 9 3/4. So once you're finished quilting, you will need to trim this quilted piece to measure 10.5 inches by 16 inches. For the pocket, you will need 2 pieces of fabric that are 5.5 inches tall and 6 inches wide. If you are using a directional print, just make sure you have it facing the right way. We are going to sew 3 sides: the side, the top, and then the other side. I do a little back stitching at the beginning, at both corners, and then again at the end. Once you are done sewing the 3 sides, you are going to want to clip the corners so that you don't have as much bulk when you turn it right side out. Once I get it turned right side out, I will use a little pin or maybe my seam ripper to kind of poke the corners out so that they are nice and sharp. For the front inside and back inside covers, you are going to need 2 pieces of fabric that measure 10.5 by 14. You're going to want to fold those in half and press them. They should now measure 10.5 by 7. On the front inside cover, you want to draw a line about 2 inches up from the bottom. You're going to be on the folded edge on the one side, and then you're going to lay the pocket right side down on that piece, and then you are going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on the pocket. Do not worry about those raw edges. We will be enclosing them when we finish the pocket. You will want to back stitch at the beginning and the end when you're sewing on the pocket. And then once you take the pocket out of the sewing machine, you are going to want to trim down those seams just a little bit. Just take a little tiny triangle off so that when you turn the pocket up, it isn't quite as bulky in that corner. Now you want to take it to your ironing board and press it nice and flat, and then we'll come back and top stitch it down. All we're doing here is top stitching on these finished edges on the 3 sides of the pocket. I will back stitch a little bit at both ends. I'm also using my open toe foot so I can see exactly where I'm sewing. This would be a fun spot to break out some of those fancy stitches that your sewing machine can do. I just did a straight stitch, but you could do any number of fun decorative stitches. Once you get the pocket sewn down, you're going to want to trim the threads, and then you're going to want to add some straight lines down the center so that you have, instead of one big pocket, you have a little bit of space to put pins in different pockets. I'm going to sew down 3 straight lines from top to bottom to make pockets for pins. You can make more or less, it kind of just depends on how wide you want your little pockets to be. I did not mark these lines as I sewed them, I just kind of eyeballed it, but if you wanted them to be perfectly straight, you could go ahead and mark them with some sort of marking pencil. For not marking mine, I think these turned out pretty nice. They look fairly straight to me. Now it's time to put all of our pieces together and layer them in the correct order to make our journal cover. First on the table is the quilted piece that is 10.5 by 16, and then you want to add 2 pieces of ribbon, 1 from each side. The ribbon can be about 13 inches long. If the ribbon has a front side to it, make sure that you put the right side down, and then make sure you smooth them across so they lay flat. Next, we're going to add the pocket piece, and that goes pocket side down. The folded part of the big section here should be in the center, and you're going to pin it on the 2 sides. The back inside cover goes on the other end. Again, the fold is in the center, and you're going to pin it on the side. You want to make sure to take one last second here to double check that your folds are on the inside. The folds should be facing each other. Next, you want to add your lining fabric. This is a piece that is cut 10.5 inches by 16 inches, and you're going to lay that piece right side down, and then you're going to pin all the way around. Once you have all the layers pinned in place, you are going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on 3 sides of it. You're going to sew the 2 long sides and then the short side that has the pocket unit in it. Make sure to do some back stitching at the beginning, at both of the corners, and at the end. You are sewing through a lot of layers here, so make sure you go a little bit slower and kind of adjust as you need to, and remove the pins before you sew over them so that you don't break a needle. Once we get to the end, we should take out all the pins that are extra except for the one that's holding down the ribbon, and you're going to want to tack the ribbon down before we move on to the next step. So we're just going to open this up, find that ribbon, and tack it down. Once I've got the ribbon tacked down, I'm going to go ahead and take my 1/4 inch foot off the machine. I'm going to put my open toe foot on, and then I'm going to do a zigzag stitch all the way around to kind of make sure there aren't any strings that'll fall off later. Once you're done with the zigzag stitch, you're going to want to take it off the machine, flip the corners and turn the whole thing right side out. Once you have the whole thing turned right side out, you are going to take the front inside cover, the piece that has the pocket sewn into it, and you're going to flip that over so that it's covering the lining. So you should see the front of the journal cover and the pocket of the inside cover. You're going to want to flatten that as best you can, and then use a seam ripper to help poke the extra fabric to come out of the corners. On the one end, you will have this piece with the pocket and the ribbon that sticks out. On the other end, you should only see the lining. You will still have the back inside cover, which will be on the other side yet. Take a little time to press this piece before we move on to the next step. Now we're set to sew the last seam. So make sure that you have the pocket unit on the left side, and then the inside back cover will still be on the other side of the fabric piece. You have the ribbon there, and so you want to lay that so that the lining is face down, and then you're going to want to sew this one last seam. Make sure that the ribbon is out of the way. My machine is still set up to do the zigzag stitch with the open toe foot, so I'm going to do that part first. Make sure to do a back stitch at the beginning and the end of this seam. Once you have the zigzag stitching done, you can go ahead and change over to your 1/4 inch foot and do the seam with your 1/4 inch foot in a straight stitch. Make sure to change the stitch from zigzag to straight stitch when you put your 1/4 inch foot on, otherwise you'll break a needle. Make sure to do a back stitch at the beginning and the end of this seam also. When you get done with this seam, you're going to want to clip the corners so that you can reduce bulk when you're turning it right side out. Once the corners are clipped, you're going to want to turn the back inside cover right side out. Once you get this turned right side out, you're going to want to use your seam ripper or a pin to poke those corners out to get them as crisp as you can, and then you're going to want to press it so it lays nice and flat. Once you get done pressing it, you're going to want to fold it so that the front cover and back cover are next to each other and the ribbons are together. You're going to open the composition book and flip the front and back cover so that they're facing the journal cover, and then you're going to slip the front and the back pages into those pockets that you've made. This part takes just a little bit of finagling with the fabric, and then you pull it so that the whole back cover is enclosed, and then you flip it around to get the ribbons together again, and there is your journal cover. It kind of takes just a little bit of straightening, and then you tie the ribbons and it's finished. Now that your journal is finished, you can use it as a place to keep track of all the projects that you're working on and the ones you've finished. The pocket on the inside cover is a great place to store pens and a scissor for when you want to cut things apart to put on the pages. We have some really fun sticker sets that we have available here at the Quilted Forest, and we used these last year too to decorate our book and mark the pages, mark the months, kind of help us brighten up the inside of our journal. So I would just put the stickers right on the page and fill in with whatever I wanted to write about what was happening that particular day or that particular month. And it's just kind of a way to brighten up the pages and make them a little more fun. With the pockets right there, it's nice and handy to grab your pen and fill in all the information you want to remember. We have sticker sets with journals and sticker sets by themselves. I'm using my journal to keep track of my projects for this year, for my projects of the month, and then I'm also keeping track of the block the months that I do and any other projects that I get finished. I grab pictures of them and put them in here so that I can always remember what I was working on. For January, we're supposed to be working on project number 5. So I'm going to start my January page out, fill in the project that I'm supposed to be working on, and then record my progress as I get it finished. In a composition book with 100 pages, that would leave you about 8 pages per month that you could fill in and have fun memories to look back on. I stored my stickers in a plastic bag and kept them with my journal. Here is my journal from last year. You can see how thick it is. I've been having a lot of fun looking at it and looking through some of the pages I made and remembering all the projects I worked on. So I'm really glad I made this journal, and I cannot wait to see what I put in this year's journal. I put in stickers, I put in photographs, I put in pieces of fabric, I put in anything that I thought I might want to look back on and remember. Some days I would write serious stuff, some days were kind of silly, but every day was fun, and when I look back on this in a few years, I bet it'll be even more special. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please hit like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching, and happy quilting!